The NBA draft is just about a month away, and I think now it's safe to say that the Will Riley dream of coming back to Illinois is over.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. My name is Sunny Verma, your host here at Locked On Illini, where I continue to provide you coverage daily. That's right, every single day, no days off. I don't care if it's summertime. I don't care if we're in the off season. There's no such thing as off season here at Locked On. So if you'd like to support the show, all the information is absolutely free. The only thing I ask for in return is if you can hit that like button and just make sure you're subscribed. Again, it's my ultimate goal to hit 5,000 subs by the time we kick off for the football season. If you're watching this on Wednesday, first off, thank you very, very much. But I will tell you that Wednesday could be a huge day for Illini athletics, football in particular. So again, you want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel because hopefully if there's some positive breaking news later on today, you might be seeing me come back live for a rapid reaction. Something I did want to discuss today was the NBA draft and Will Riley and Kasparas Jakucionis. A new updated mock draft came out from ESPN. Obviously, Jonathan Givony, who's widely considered the best in the business, came out with his most recent updated mock draft. And I just wanted to kind of discuss what the update was because it pertains to what Illinois could look like next season. It had Kasparas Jakucionis show up at the 10th pick, being drafted by the Houston Rockets. And, he basically says the same thing that we all know about KJ ourselves just from watching him all season long. About KJ, it says that he will need to sharpen his decision-making and cut down on turnovers to see maximum time on the ball long-term. Though some teams have speculated he could slip out of the top 10 because of how the board is falling, Jakucionis appears fairly solid in the numbers 8 to 12 range at this stage, which is kind of what I think most of us, I know there's a few of you who don't feel like Kasparas should be drafted all that high, but I think the consensus has always been that he's not good enough to be in the top 5, like some mock drafts were showing him during the season. But if you're talking about later lottery, I definitely do think he's a lottery pick. And if, this article is saying 8 to 12, that does sound about right to me. I think he is a really talented player. I don't know what his ceiling is ultimately, but he certainly has things that he needs to work on. But I think in the right situation, Kasparas can absolutely be a very valuable player in the NBA moving forward, especially at the size that he clocked in at the NBA draft combine. I think a lot of teams would be really interested in a point guard his size. More notably, I wanted to discuss Will Riley, who showed up at number 22 in the mock draft, being drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. And I say this is notably because I believe the last mock draft, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Will Riley was number 16 in that mock draft. And so I discussed long on the show that, I don't think that there was any real chance that Will Riley was coming back. I put it, I think, around 15 to 20%. And even that, I admit, was kind of aggressive. I've said this before. The only way that I could see Will returning to the Illini would be if he just had a disastrous draft combine. And from what I've seen when it comes to the drills, Will didn't have a great week in Chicago, but his size more than made up for it. He no longer has a negative reach, which he had last year at Illinois. And now he clocked in, I believe, 6'9", if I recall that correctly. And so there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be interested in a kid who's 6'9" and who can score at all levels like Will can. And so I think now I'm pretty comfortable saying that the NBA draft combine week was not disastrous, which again is a good thing. Ultimately, this is a good thing because Will, for the most part, is still mocked in that first round. And so if he's mocked in that first round, then it would be silly of him to consider coming back to the Illini. Even at pick number 22, I think I saw he would get paid a little over $3 million. Now, if he decided to come back to Illinois, could he make that $3 million? If I'm being honest with you, I don't know. I've mentioned that when it comes to Will Riley, that there was an emergency fund that if he did decide to come back to Illinois, that it was one of those break in case of emergency type of funds that was available for Will. But that conversation I had was almost 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, almost before. It might have been before this transfer portal even started. And the numbers that I was being told at that time was not what the numbers of the modern market look like. Let's be honest. If you have some of the top players in college basketball coming back to college basketball to play for $4 million, as I've heard Yaxel is demanding from Michigan, if he decides to come back to college basketball, Will would want something very similar. He certainly does need to grow a little bit to play at the NBA level, but if he were to come back to the Illini next season, he would be one of the favorites to not only be an all Big Ten contender, but he has the skills and that scoring ability to be the best player on a potentially very good team. Now, keep in mind, if Will Riley came back to this Illinois team, you're talking about a potential top 5 team in college basketball next year. And that itself could make Will in the conversation for being an All-American. So, of course, he would want to demand that sort of money as well. But if we're all being sensible here and we're not being a little biased Illini fans, if he's going to make, let's just say, right around $3.1 million, being drafted at number 22. And I'll be honest, I have a feeling he's going to go higher. I really do. I don't have anything concrete. It's just I've been trying to keep up with the NBA draft, the whispers here and there. And I do think that Will ultimately could be one of the surprise early picks. Now, I don't think he's going to go into the lottery or anything like that, although I did mention in an episode, I believe it was last week, why if he did somehow sneak into the back end of the lottery, and if Illinois ended up getting 2 guys picked in the lottery this year, how that would be an absolute boon for the program. But while I don't think he's going to sneak into the lottery, I absolutely do think that he's going to eventually get drafted closer to the 16 that he was in the previous mock draft than he will at the 22 that he's mocked in, at least of this week. Now, again, what does this mean for Illinois? I'm being honest with you. This staff has been moving forward with the idea that Will was not going to be on this team regardless. If you take a look at the players that we have, we would have to bench a very good basketball player if Will decide to come back. Now, they would have, of course. You're never going to turn down a guy like Will who wants to come back. As I mentioned, he could be not only all Big Ten, but he could be a potential All-American next year. But I think the thinking all along has been that Will's going to go on to the draft. I know I wanted to address this because a lot of Illini fans have that dream that, hey, maybe Will does decide to come back. Hey, it might make sense to, instead of being at the end of the first round, why not play your butt off, score a lot of points, lead this really good Illini team, and maybe you can sneak in to the NBA lottery. But I think ultimately, if Will does decide to stay in, which I don't think he's made an announcement yet, but I'm assuming that he's going to, it's the right call. Not only is he going to make over $3 million, if not more, this season, but he gets to start the clock on his second NBA contract. And that's when you ultimately build generational wealth. Let me know your thoughts. Have you already secretly acknowledged that Will Riley was never really coming back? Also, friendly reminder, if you want to see if both Kasparas and Will Riley get drafted together at the lottery, I'll be hosting a get-together, a second official Locked On Illini get-together group outing. It'll be probably at a brewery or a restaurant in the west suburbs of Chicago. I believe the date's June 25th. If that's something you're interested in, send me a message on your favorite social media, Locked On Illini, or just send me an email, talkillini@gmail.com, and I can send you over details. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Speaking of win big, I did want to mention to you Illini fans who also might be Cubs fans, earlier this season, I took Pete Crow Armstrong to win MVP at plus 5,500 and plus 8,000. Now, I thought it was a silly bet. I've just always been on this PCA train, but now let me know your thoughts. All of a sudden, is this something I want to consider cashing out on because of the season that PCA is having? If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And welcome back to Locked On Illini, your daily home for all things Illinois athletics. Next up, I wanted to take a look at a legal battle that might seem like it doesn't impact Illinois directly, but trust me, if it goes through, it could impact not just Illinois, but the entire college athletics landscape. Zakai Zeigler, a name most in the Big Ten are pretty comfortable with, that certainly Illinois fans know the name, has just filed a lawsuit against the NCAA. And he's not just looking for another year of college basketball, he's potentially opening the floodgates for thousands of athletes who might want the same. Let me set the stage real quick. Zeigler had a heck of a college career at Tennessee. The guy wasn't a five-star. He was barely recruited, but he showed up in Knoxville, forced his way into the rotation, and turned into one of the most productive and beloved players in school history. We're talking Tennessee's all-time assist leader, two-time SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and the only player to ever make the all-SEC defensive team 4 times. He averaged 13.6 points per game, 7.5 assists as a senior, but now he's asking a federal court to let him play a 5th year, even though he never redshirted. This isn't a COVID waiver. This isn't JUCO credits being miscounted. Zeigler is arguing that the NCAA's rule of allowing only 4 years of competition in a 5-year window is illegal under an antitrust law. And here's the twist. His legal team says he could earn up to $4 million in NIL next season compared to what he made last year, which was right around $500,000. Now, $4 million to $500,000, that's life-changing money. So for him, it's not just another season, it's life financial freedom. And he's saying the NCAA is unlawfully restraining trade by denying that 5th year. Now, this isn't the first time the NCAA has been taken to court over eligibility rules, but this one's kind of different. There's no extenuating circumstances here. Zeigler played 4 years in 4 years. That's it. But what makes this case interesting is that it challenges a core pillar of the NCAA's athletic structure. Zeigler's lawyers are arguing that the NIL, now that it's a legal part of the game, denying athletes a 5th year cuts off their ability to engage in commerce. They're saying that under the new economic model of college sports, where players are effectively compensated for their participation, cutting them off after 4 years is unjustified. And they're not wrong to say that this could impact thousands of athletes all across the country. If this goes Zeigler's way, every player who's played 4 years straight may have a case to play one more. That includes basketball, that includes football, but that also includes baseball, that also includes soccer, whatever sport, you name it. So let's bring this back home. What could this mean for Illinois? For one, it kind of reshapes how Brad Underwood and Brett Bielema could construct their rosters. If all of a sudden you suddenly have 23-year-olds sticking around for a 5th year, earning 6 or 7 figures in NIL, it changes the entire balance of college sports. This impacts recruiting, the transfer portal, even your developmental timeline. Let's be honest, for a guy like Brad Underwood, it may go a little more unnoticed, right? Brad does tend to turn over his roster a little bit more than the average coach, and very seldomly do you see a kid wanting to come back for a 4th or a 5th year. But Brett Bielema and the way he's been building this Illinois football program, I think this could be right up his alley. Brett is a developmental coach coaching at the University of Illinois, which is a developmental program. Uh, he talked about how hard he went after J.C. Davis to try to get him on, I believe it was Christmas Eve. He showed up at his door to try to get him to come back for another season. Imagine if he could do that all over, if he can continue to convince his players to play for a fifth season, having a fifth offseason of development under Brett Bielema and that coaching staff, and saying, hey, we can get you ready to get drafted for in the NFL, day 2 or day 3. I think this kind of rule, if anyone would benefit a guy like Brett Bielema and those coaches like him the most. It does bring up tough NIL questions. Brett did recently talk about the discrepancy between the top dogs in the Big Ten Conference and what Illinois is able to pay. But so you do have to ask yourself, what happens when these players that are very, very good at the college level, but not quite good enough to play at the professional level, do decide to come back? Is the University of Illinois capable of matching those 3, or in Zeigler's case, $4 million price tags? So that's something to be seen. And, who knows? None of us really have an answer to that right now. But, imagine, sure, Zeigler's suit is about one player, but the ramifications of it, massive. We could start seeing a future where a guy like Marcus Damask from a couple years ago could have had another year in college, where a guy like Kylan Boswell comes back for his senior season next year, but also the year after that, maybe even plays a fifth season in Champaign. Let me end on this. Zeigler's story is one of perseverance. He took 4-hour train rides to practice in high school. His family lost everything in a fire. He nearly gave up the sport. Now he's one of the most decorated players in college basketball history. And he's suing for the right to stay in college one more year. If you're a college sports fan, whether you're in Knoxville or you're in Champaign, you should be watching this case very closely, because ultimately, if the courts agree with Zeigler, we may be entering a new era of college sports where 5-year becomes the norm and not the exception. I know this changes the landscape of college athletics all around, and almost every new development when it comes to college athletics, I tend to not like. But the argument that Zeigler's legal team kind of actually makes sense to me. What they're essentially saying is, if a kid redshirts his freshman year, he can still get paid his NIL. And so he essentially, that kid who redshirts, can get paid for 5 seasons. So what Zeigler's saying is that Zeigler is being not offered that same opportunity to be paid 5 years like a counterpart who redshirts. So what he's saying is everyone should have the opportunity, at least now in the NIL era, to play 5 seasons in 5 years. I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. Obviously, we're still waiting the result of the Diego Pavia rule, but while we're all waiting for the ruling on that, we do have guys like Ben Hummerkaus coming back. Anyone who played at the JUCO level, they've been afforded an extra year of college athletics, and so we're seeing that spread out worldwide. But this is way bigger than that. This is not, a smaller rule. This is something that would affect essentially every single college athlete. Now, granted, it'll affect basketball players and college football players more so, just because of the NIL aspect of it. NIL is not as prominent in the other sports, but regardless, if you have a kid who has played 4 years of baseball and he wants to play a 5th season, what this ruling would do is give him that opportunity to play that 5th season. I may not like it as someone who's been watching college sport for 30 plus years, but understanding and recognizing the environment that we're in, the world that we're in, again, I'll say it again, it makes sense. If I'm taking my own biases out of it, I think the legal arguments that Zeigler's team is making are sound. And this is something that I'm certainly going to be paying very close attention to moving forward. And I recommend that all of you Illini fans pay attention to as well. And welcome back. If you haven't already, if you're looking for a place to talk Illini sports all day, every day, even when there's not much to talk about. Just make sure you find the link of the Talk Illini Discord. It should be in the description. Let me know if there's not an updated link, depending on when you're watching this. It's over 300 of us talking sports, life, Illini, all day, every day. We'd love to have you a part of what I think is the largest Illini community going currently. Before I let you go, I did want to have a couple news and notes. Obviously, Wednesday is going to be a huge day for Illini football. Hopefully, we're going to have Nasir Rankin and King Liggins. He also announced that he's going to be making his decision on where he wants to play college football next season on Wednesday. From what I've gathered, the information I gathered right before I started recording, this looks like it's going to be an Illinois versus Wisconsin battle. Iowa was in the forefront early in this recruitment, and that's who I thought originally he was going to go to. But now it looks like it's going to come down to the Illini, or it's going to come down to the Badgers. Am I as confident in King committing to the Illini as Nasir? No, I voiced my optimism on Rankin's commitment on yesterday's episode. If you haven't watched that, make sure you go back. I talk about it in, I believe, the second segment. But I do think that there's a good opportunity, a good chance that King might also decide to commit to the Illini. And my gosh, what a day that would be for Illinois football. And I'll mention it again. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because should we get good news tomorrow, I'll be doing my best to have a rapid reaction live where we can discuss potentially two of the newest Illini. Also, before I let you go, I did want to say congrats to Jacob Schroeder, whose solo blast in the 10th inning gave Illinois a 6-5 victory in the Big Ten tournament for baseball. Now, essentially the way it works is all these teams are grouped into a pod, and any team that goes 2-0 in their pod automatically advances to the next round. So Illinois is now halfway there. Also, the Illini women's basketball team announced that they signed Long Island transfer Gisela Segura. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know much about her, but just some basic stats. She's 5'11". She averaged 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and a steal in 27 minutes last year. She's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, and she's from Spain. So again, if I've promised you guys before that I'm going to be talking more athletics, not just football and basketball. And so that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the Big Ten tournament baseball game, and also the Illini women's newest transfer. But also, I'm going to end it with talking about a new hire for the Illini, as they've announced that the Illini women's gymnastics team has hired a new head coach. His name is Josh Nilsson. Now, again, I'm not going to lie to you. I know very little about Josh Nilsson, but it's absolutely newsworthy. And so that's the type of information you're going to find right here on Locked On Illini. Thank you so much for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you find podcasts. Again, send me an email at talkillini@gmail.com if you're interested in joining one of our official group outings. We're going to be meeting on June 20th for the Cubs game. We'll be in Wrigleyville essentially all day, and then we'll be attending the game against the Seattle Mariners. But also, just a few days later, when it's the NBA Lottery Day, hopefully a few of us will get together somewhere to watch Kasparas Jakucionis, and who knows, maybe even Will Riley start their NBA stories. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. Again, on your way out, make sure you smash that like button if you like what you heard today. And until next time, ILL. Love you guys.